Okay, so let's start. Assalamu alaikum everyone, and I welcome you all to the new feature launch for July 2022. So for those who are new here, I'll just explain what this session is about. So basically every month every month we launch certain new features, and then this is a platform where we talk to our customers about how the feature is adding value to their day-to-day operations, and how those features can be used. So we give you a live demo of how the features work. Okay, so before moving forward, I'll just be explaining the logistics of this web event. It's that when you join the session, please try to keep your mics on mute. And if you have any questions during the sessions or even at the end of the session, you may drop in your questions at the chat window, and then we'll be answering them either during the session or after at the end when we'll be having the question and answer round. Okay, let's proceed. Okay. First of all, I'd like to wish everyone an Eid al-Azha Mubarak. I hope you all had a very good and safe COVID-free Eid. And we planned the webinar a little late because of the Eid holidays that were falling in. So we wanted everyone to join after they're back from their Eid break with a relaxed mind. So yeah, a very happy Eid to all of you. Okay, moving forward, I'll just be giving you a brief recap of what happened in our last webinar. So we followed a similar pattern. We introduced some exciting new features. We gave the demo for all those features, and so we introduced web features as well as mobile application features, so all the demos were given. Okay. Moving forward, this is the upcoming innovation plan that we basically follow. So July updates are something that we're going to talk about in this session, followed by the August and September. So this is just to give you an idea of what we are planning, and how our innovation pipeline looks like, so that you're also aware of what are the upcoming innovations. Okay, yeah. So moving forward to the agenda, so we'll be talking about web application features and followed by their demos. Then we'll be talking about mobile application features followed by their demo, and then we're going to slightly talk about the system improvements that we've done. Okay. So moving on to the first part of our agenda, that is web application feature demos. So the first item that we're going to talk about is the return on investment calculator. Now, if you've been attending our webinars, previous webinars, we have introduced this feature previously as well, but we have introduced certain improvements in the feature, and we did some minor tweakings in the module. So we'll be giving you a complete demo of how the return on investment calculator is working, and what changes we've introduced in the calculator. So basically, any customer that we've given the return on investment calculator, they came with their feedback, and then we incorporated those feedback. So at the end of the day, your feedback does matter. So we'll be giving you a demo of what exactly the return on investment calculator is and how you can use it. So Maliha from my team will be giving you the demo for this. So over to you, Maliha.
Hello, assalamu alaikum everybody. Eid Mubarak. So today I'll walk you guys through the ROI module. I'll just share my screen. So this is the module. These are all the features. If you can see, these are all the features available for this module. So there is expenses, sub-expenses, distributor margin, budgets, expense log, the approvals for the logs, and then you can calculate. Before I start the demo, I'll just give you an overview of how this works. Previously, this functionality was being done manually, which was through Excel, and it was a tedious process where people would just send in all the expenses incurred, and then they will compile it, put it up on an Excel. Then all the sales which are taken through our system are then put in on the Excel, and then it's just a very time-consuming activity. Although this is a very important module which helps you understand what and how your business is doing. And to automate that process, we came up with this module. And to ease out the process further, we've broken down into these small tabs where you can one time configure your expense heads, like my screen says, the direct expenses, the indirect expenses. You can name them whatever you like. So if I show you, when you add an expense, you can write a name, whichever head it falls under, and you can set it up. You can have the status active or inactive. You can edit it and turn it inactive if it's no longer in use. Similarly, if you go on to the sub expenses can be all the expenses that are incurred under your expenses. For example, if I say direct expense, so you could have all the expenses that come under that head. For example, we can have the warehouse rent, the taxes. So your list of expenses will be all the active expenses that are in the system. You can punch in, for example, electricity as your direct expense. There's a field called subsidy. Subsidy is a percentage of value that the client wants to help out the distributor with. This, if you mark it as yes here, when you're logging the expense here, you will be able to add in the percentage of subsidy that is going to be given to the distributor. So we have all our sub expenses here, which are active. These can also be marked inactive at any point when they're no longer needed. But if you mark a sub expense inactive, in the future logs, in the future calculators, that will reflect inactive, but all the data that already has it, which is the previously calculated data, will have this sub expense in your sheet. Moving on to the distributor margins, I'll walk you guys through the settings. The settings for this particular module are such. We can go on to the ROI setting. So we have two types of margin calculation, which is a system calculated and a user input. If you mark it as system calculated, the distributor margin setup from the menu goes away, and the system will calculate the margin based on your secondary sales and your primary sales and give you a value. If you do user input, like we've done right now, so you can add a new margin here. And when you add a new margin, there are two types of margins, a distributor margin and a special margin. You can apply a distributor margin over any hierarchy you like, which is the manufacturer, business unit, category, and so on till the SKUs. And further, if you have a special margin for a particular SKU, for a particular category, that can be done over and above, right? So after that, you can, and if you don't want the special margin option to be open, you can also close it. Then we have an option called ROI budget. ROI budget is for all the expenses and sub expenses that are incurred. You can set up a budget. The budget can be for the quantity and the value, right? I'll show you. And then you can have mandatory expense attachment. When you're logging your expenses, you can have an option to attach your expenses so that you know you can support your expense that is incurred, right? For all the expenses that you want to attach, you have the file type, and you can check and uncheck anyone you like, right? Then we have this setting called enable turnover tax. This is for clients who would need it. We would like whoever would like to open it can open it from here, and then it will be reflected when you're calculating your ROI. So we'll just add it in, right? For when you have a budget set, you should when your budget is being exceeded, you should also have a master user for who will approve if it goes further than the budget. For that, you can set up all the users that you have in the system, and you can pick any. You can also have a setting which is the expense approval setting, where if you want that the system should go through, after logging the expenses, should go through an approval hierarchy. If you select so, you can also select the levels it goes into, and then also what level and what user should also get a notification when you are approving your logs, right? So for the demo, we'll just keep the process simply fair so you can understand. And I'll just show you how the budget goes. So if you add a budget and you say you want to add it from a particular distributor for all the expenses that are active and all the sub expenses that are active. So I'll just show you what it looks like. So this is what the sheet looks like. For the month of June, you can add in the quantity and the value for the budget that you want to add, right? If you save it and upload the file from here, you have the option to upload it. And then similarly, you have an option to edit it on screen, sorry. So we'll just close this so that we can have a simple process. So I have a distributor margin set up. If you want, we can view it. So this distributor margin is set on the manufacturer level, right? And you can set up different values for different manufacturers. I'll just walk you through adding a new margin. So we'll select the distributor type. We'll select the particular distributor we are working on for. And I'll say I'll do it on manufacturer, and I'll download the sample file for it. So here goes the sample file. You can add in whatever value you feel like. We'll save it and we'll upload it. Here, because for this particular this particular distributor, we already have a active distributor margin uploaded into the system. This will prompt us to, if we want to mark it inactive and make the new one active. Similarly, here we have a option to edit your uploaded file. Instead, go back to your file and upload and make an edit. You can edit it at any point in time here and save it. And we can save it and import it. Like I said, it will prompt us that these distributor margins are already defined for this distributor. So if we proceed, the previous margins will be marked inactive. So we say yes, proceed. And if you see, the previous one is marked inactive and this one is active. Similarly, let's just add in the expense logs. Expense log can be added for that particular distributor that you have marked the margin for. You can only add in expenses for the previous months because the ROI is calculated for all the months that have passed by, not the current month or the future. So how about we just take April? So here we have a tab called investment. Investment is all the investment that the distributor has made during that month. There are different types of investment that we have configured, which is a market credit, stock on floor, stock in transit, and all your outstanding claims. The first three fields are fetched from our system because we have visibility of all these three items. Other than that, outstanding claims we can punch in. There are other investments that you can also punch in. And if you have other types of investments that we have not catered into our system, there is also an option where you can select other investment, a title you can add on your own, and the value, right? You can also at any time delete it, right? After the investment, these are all the expenses that we had configured into our system. This is expense, the direct expense, and all the sub expenses that fall underneath. Then you have the distribution selling expense, the indirect expense, and the administrator general expense. So we just punch in the expense. So if we would have marked the in the settings that we have to mandatory add a supporting document for our expenses, then we would have to upload a file here. All the file types that are supported are mentioned here. Here we have the total of all the expenses that are incurred under this tab. So we can also add a subsidy, which is 10% subsidy for this, right? I'm just filling in dummy data for us to run the process. Right, and we'll just log our expenses. Right, once the expense is logged, we'll calculate the ROI. Similarly, we can only calculate the ROI for the previous months. So the sales for this particular manufacturer are visible here because our margin was based on the manufacturer. This is the value of the margin and we set it as a 20%. Then we did not enter a special margin, so the value comes in 0. These are all the expenses that we had punched in. With their subsidy, if there is any, we did 10% subsidy, so that has been deducted. Then we have the net profit calculated, and then we have all the investments that are calculated, right? Once we save the ROI, it cannot recalculate. And by recalculate, we mean there are times that, for example, in the particular or the previous month that we're talking about, the sales have not been recorded correctly, or the invoices have not been knocked off up to today. So there is still a possibility you would want to recalculate it. You can also just download the ROI, which has been calculated, and we can just see it. So this is the ROI format that comes down when you calculate it. This is the sale. This is the entire format that shows on the screen. Has been, it comes down onto your Excel. Right? If you want, we can save it. When we save it, it is generated successfully and it comes in here. After this, you can only view this. It cannot be recalculated. Right. Currently, we are working on ROI reports, which will include all the previously calculated ROIs for visibility of the client. And one more setting I wanted to show. And yeah, that's about it. I'll hand it over back to someone.
Thank you, Leela. Okay, guys, so just to summarize, the ROI calculator can be used by distributions to calculate the net profit that the distribution has been making by logging in their expenses, their investments, and then you can see according to your net sales how much profit the distribution is doing. So this was one of the most requested features that we had gotten previously. So we've completely worked on it, and I'll encourage you guys to use it as well. Try using it on your test instances and see how you can, we can improve it as well for you. So yeah. Okay. Moving on. So the next feature that we worked on is filters on payment grid. So if anyone who has been using our payment collection module would know that previously there was only a simple search option available, and if you selected the distributor, then all the stores against whose ledger was available were simply displayed. So now we've incorporated an advanced search option, which we'll be walking you through in a greater detail on how you can select different date ranges, and you can filter on store balances as well, and only those specific stores will be filtered on the grid. So Astra will be giving you a demo of how the feature works. So over to you, Astra.
Assalamualaikum everyone. I'll just share my screen. Okay. So previously, in our payment collection screen, we only had the capability of selecting a distributor. So if a distributor, let's say, has 4,000, 5,000 stores, all of those stores would just show up, and you had no way of basically filtering through and going through a smaller list of stores to find the one you want. So with this update, you can now, we've added a whole bunch of new features that you can that I'll be talking about. So underneath distributor, there's now date range. So you can filter your records based on whether or not you had transactions in this date. So let's say if you only want to see records of stores with which you've had transactions in the past, let's say 2 months, 3 months, even just the past 2 days, you can do that. By default, this is set to your current date. So it'll say, if you don't edit the date, it'll show you all your transactions for today. Then, so let's say if I click this and I don't do anything else, I just select a distributor, don't change the date, and then I click apply filters. I will see that for today, only this store had a transaction. Then we have advanced filters. So you can select whether you want to filter on balance or store details. So let's go with balance for now. So what this means is there's 3 options for you to filter balance on. There's an equal to sign, there's less than, or there's greater than. So once you select balance, this field becomes mandatory. So let's say this is for you to say whether you want to see records, only those records of stores which have a balance less than a certain amount, or you want to check out those stores that have pending credit for a certain amount, or greater than a certain amount, or equal to a certain amount. So this filter allows you to do that. So if we click on less than, we can also see there's an information icon. So if selected, the store results will be further filtered out of the selected stores. Only those stores with balance equals to, less than, or greater than the amount defined in the input field will be displayed. So you know how there's one step of filtration happening with the date range. So what this means is that, so with today, the date range shows, let's if we move it back to let's select the 1st of June. So what this means is that you're telling the system that you want to only see records for stores that have had transactions since the 1st of June, as well as who have balance less than 500, who owe you money, like who's pending balance with you is less than 500. So this lets you do that. If you want to exit this, there's a cross button, and there's an explanation underneath. This can be used to clear any filter balance on operator that has been selected and any amount that has been defined. So this closes. If you choose to filter on store details, So, okay, let's take an example for filter balance on. So filter balance on less than 500. So we can see a few records have shown up. Astra store 2, current balance is 0. Same with Tuz store 13. With Tuz store 1, we can see that that store owes you around 36,270. And Tuz store 11 owes around 3 lakh. So that's what that does. Then we go on store details. We find store by. So there's two options here, channel hierarchy or town hierarchy. So channel hierarchy, you would select the channel type, the channel, the sub-channel, and then eventually it will present you a list of stores, and you can pick exact stores for which you want to see the balance. Let's go with town hierarchy for now. So we select a town, we select a locality, we select our sub-locality, and then we have our whole list of stores that meet this criteria. So when we click apply filter, we're met with all the stores that meet this criteria. And so when you can also, there's another further step of filtration that where you can select your town hierarchy or your channel hierarchy. And on top of that, you can say that only those stores out of the selected stores that had balance less than, greater than, or equal to a certain amount, display those. So again, if we add like another layer of filtration here, so it's only showing those stores that have balance less than, greater than, or equal to this amount. So let's go from scratch. So we can see that when we just click apply, when we select our distributor and we click apply filters, Astra store 2 currently has, we had transactions today, but all of the balance has been cleared. So our current balance is at 0. We can now place a secondary order. So we have this distributor, we have Astra store 2, we have our SKUs. I place the secondary order and then go on stock allocation. And I go on execute stock allocation. So we can see the invoice net amount, net value is around 9,820. So I execute invoices and generate load form. So when I refresh this grid, we can see that the balance has been updated. So there's a negative balance of 9,820. So when I go on load form settlement, and I go to settle this load form. So I'm going to say that all of my sales were on credit, because if I this is per the regular working, that if cash was collected, then there would be no balance with the store. But assuming my sales are on credit, so that all of 9,820 is on credit. So I've settled this load form. Now, the same way, so the options are the same. I can collect cash, collect check, clear check, view payment history, and view store ledger. So when I go to collect cash for the store, I can see my balance. I select my app user, and it shows me the invoices that are within this date range that are pending for this app user. So we can see the 9,820 balance, cash collected. I can either pay the full amount, I can edit it and pay a different amount, partial amount. This is obviously dependent. And then I execute credit recovery. And it shows our balance is back to 0. So as per our normal working, we also have, you can view the store ledger. So your distributor is there, your store name is there. It tells you your store balance, store opening balance as of July 15th. So today's date, since that was our filter. So it shows you your filter on top as well. And it also shows you your store closing balance as of this date. So we can see that all of these are the transactions that I had between these date ranges. This is the last one that I had. and I cleared it. So there was a negative, I paid that amount, it's clear. So my closing balance right now is 0. Furthermore, we can also, the working is the same. You can download your payment collection records, and you can also download your filtered records. So it's only showing me my filtered records, which is Astra Store 2. So it's just this, the addition of the filters just makes the process a lot easier, and it makes it really easy for you to just find that one specific store that you're looking for. Over to you, Simon.
Thank you, Asra. So I'm sure payment collection is something that is being used in day-to-day distribution operations, and we've made it easier, and we've tried to make your life easier by the addition of these filters. And if there are any further improvements, we're open to suggestions. Okay. So moving on to the next feature that we worked on. This is basically a setting that has been made for unplanned visits. So if any customer who has been using our unplanned visits feature would know that there was a simple setting that that you used to enable, and then unplanned visits were applicable in the mobile application for any order booker and for any distribution belonging to that company, right? So now we've made this particular settings bifurcating distributions as well, so that any particular distribution that wants unplanned visits to be enabled, only those can carry on with the unplanned visits. Otherwise, other distributions will not be affected. So Zoha will be giving you a detailed demo. So this is a web-based setting, but then it will be translated into the application as well, on how unplanned visits were. So we'll just be covering the web part over here. Yeah, so over to you, Zoha, for the demo.
Thank you, Saman. I hope I'm audible. I'll be sharing my screen now. Right, so as someone mentioned that we already had a setting in that comes under the umbrella of visit management. So like someone said, a lot of people that are using our visit management setting are using this setting. But if you're not aware of what this setting does, is that there's something called PJP in the system that plans your permanent journey. That is, you have official routes, shops that you're supposed to visit on a daily basis. This particularly pertains to the order bookers that have the order booking app. So this directly relates to the mobile application as well. So if we close this setting, the user will not be able to perform unplanned visits. That is, they can only go through the stores that are present in their PJPs, as we have PJPs and visits for all the order bookers. So if you do not have this setting on, and if you did not know that we can also create unplanned visits using the application, probably your setting is turned off, so you can have it turned on onto your web panel. If we do enable this setting, we are presented with an option where we need to select the distributions that are allowed unplanned visits, right? So if one of the distributors that the order bookers are servicing are related to are not checked in this particular drop down, then they won't have the option to perform unplanned visits. So previously, this setting has been always available for all the clients, and how it looked like, this was the outlook of how it used to be. So there was a distribution drop down where you select the number of distributors, and you also select all the channels that are allowed unplanned visit generation. So we had multiple requests requesting that this is a very specific feature, that is all the channels. So if, let's say, if there's a certain distribution XYZ and a certain distribution ABC, if I were to assign different channels to different distributors, that is not
not possible using the current flow. So we need to have a dynamic setting where different distributions can have different channels enabled on them for the unplanned visit generation. So this was the outlook as to how this used to be. That is, if I select all three of these distributions and I select, let's say, 3 channels, so all the stores that fall under this category, these 3 channels of these distributions will be allowed the unplanned visits. Otherwise, nobody else will be able to create or perform unplanned visits. So keeping in mind the new requirement, what we did was we created another setting which would not impact the current user. So if you're already using the system, you don't have to worry about any change that you'll have to perform, because by default, your settings are to remain the same. But if you do require this setting, that is, if you want different distributions to have different channels and consequently different shops to have unplanned visits, then you can use this particular setting. What it does is that for using this setting, what you do is that you'd first define the distributions jinke upar you need to enable the channels, right? So let's say if I do Shan, the 2 Shan distributions and 1 Pacific distribution, and I want to see or like upload the file, I'll show you how the file looks like, where you specify the channel against distributions. So this is the file where you say, okay, these are my distributions, right? And this is my distribution code, this is my distribution, and these are the channels that are to be allowed unplanned visits. So any shops that are related to this particular channel are to be allowed the unplanned visit generation, which means that in the app you will be able to create unplanned visits other than the ones that are present, that are already present in your PJP. So here I'll put in yes for bakery and then yes for canteen. If I had another distribution here, let's say if I had D0003, I could have another channel specified.
Kindly please share your screen. The Excel
Oh,
is
it's
not.
not. Okay. Let me share my screen. Right, so this is the Excel file. Sorry, I was talking about the Excel file and it was not visible. This is the Excel file that downloads once you click onto this particular option. What it does is कि जो आपकी पुरानी setting होगी, that is, I have specified मेरे इन 3 distributions पे, these are the channels that should be allowed unplanned visit. They'll be downloaded using this particular CSV. So I downloaded the CSV, and this is how the CSV looks like. It has the distribution code, it has the distributor, it has channels. Here you can specify which channels will be allowed the unplanned visits. Order bookers can perform unplanned visits on stores accordingly. Here, if you do not, you don't have to worry about filling in no in all the fields that you don't want the unplanned visits to be, because null, this blank also picks up as a null value, and you won't have to specify exactly what other value there has to be other than yes. So you just have to specify all the yes channels that you want against the distributions, and this is how you will be able to describe different different channels against different distributions. After you're done using the file and you've filled in the values, you can upload that file. The very important, you can choose the file and then you'll be uploading it. A very important piece of information would be that every time you do this activity, your previous file would be refreshed. That is, not all the entries that you're adding are adding up into that file. They'll just overwrite your previous whatever file that you uploaded. So it is to note that every time you're making this change, you need to understand that you put in all the values that you previously filled, and if you're making any new entries, all the previous entries are to be done again, and the entire file will be overwritten. So your the file that you're uploading should be current as of now. Other than that, there is nothing except for the default setting is not to be worried about, because it'll be same for the users. For those who do want this separate setting, can use this one, and then they can download and upload the file. So Saman, that's it about this particular setting. We can now move on.
Thank you, Zoha. Okay. Yeah. So moving on to the next part of our agenda is that we'll be talking about mobile application features. So there are 3 features that we worked on that we'll be talking about. And yeah, so one is the improved sync up and sync down time, then around STR visibility and STR replacements that we worked on. And then there's also landmark visibility on unplanned visits. So we'll be giving you a demo of all these mobile application features, and Ali will be heading the demo. Yeah, so over to you, Ali.
Thank you, Saman. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so let's dive right into the demo. So one of the issues that we saw happening with order bookers was that they would not know the exact time when they would not know their times for syncing down and syncing up on the application, right? So they would have to do it multiple times just to be sure when they were syncing down or when they had synced up their information from the app. So now if you open the drawer on your left, you can now see that next to the sync down button, we have given the last sync down, which gives you the day, the date, and the time. So this was done today at 11:37 a.m. So let me just sync down again. So I think the internet is a bit slow, so it might take it. Sorry, let me just change my internet and try that again. So apologies for that. So now, as you can see, the last sync down time is Friday, 15th July, 3:42 p.m., which was just done right now. And then we can also sync up. And once we do that, we can see. So we have sync down, and now we can sync up again. And we can see that the sync up time is 15th July, 3:43 p.m. So now order bookers will have visibility on when they're syncing up and when they're syncing down. Right? So that is the first feature we have. The second feature, we can move on. And the idea was that when you go for an unplanned visit, there can be multiple stores of the same name, for example, Mashallah or Bismillah store. So to differentiate between them, we are now putting in an improvement of landmark. So as you can see, for Hamid's store, you have the name of the store, the number, the store code, and then you have landmark against each of the stores. So this will help you differentiate when going to the store. So you can go back. And now if you long press on a store, we are providing replacement and SDR summary. So the initial idea about this was that we wanted to give a short summary of the SDRs that were raised on that day against a particular store, right? And we also wanted to provide a hard copy for the orders, right? So if you see, we don't have replacement history right now. So let's just go ahead and raise replacement here, replacement. Go ahead with quantity and then take the picture. And we can submit, right? So if we go back, we can long press and check our replacement history. And as you can see, we have the SKU name, we have the units, and then we have the amount. And as many SKUs as you put, the total amount changes with it, right? And then you also have the option to print, which will give a hard copy to the order booker or spot seller. This might particularly be useful for spot sellers, right? So if we go back and actually look at our SDR summary, so it follows the same idea. We don't have SDR right now, so let's go ahead and raise that as well. Okay, let's take a picture. And submit that. So we can go back, long press, and we have a SDR summary as well. So again, you have the SKU, the units, and the amount that is visible. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali. Okay, so yeah. So moving on to the third part, that is system improvement. So Ali, like Ali showed you, in unplanned visits, we've added landmark visibility. So that was a system improvement that we've done. Yeah. So these were all the features that we wanted to talk about in this session. And similar to the last session, we'll be showing you the upcoming innovations for our August, September, and October pipeline. This is just to give you an idea of how our innovation pipeline looks like, and just to give you a little bit of visibility. Yeah, so these are all subject to change, but if you guys have any other things in mind, we have kept an open-ended question for you guys at the end of the session, which will be coming to further, where you can give in suggestions of any feature that you guys want us to incorporate, or any day-to-day operation that you feel is getting tedious for you to do manually, so if we can improve on it, right? So we'll be taking questions now for the features that we have and demoed, and if you have any questions regarding that, then we can take them, and then I'll move on to the last slide. Okay, so we did have a few queries. That is, expense and sub-expense description is not showing in the Excel. Okay, so Maliha has replied, the budget Excel has the codes of expenses and sub-expenses we can add in the description. Okay, so Heather, that was a good suggestion, because the codes for the expenses and sub-expenses would be difficult to remember, so we can add in description, so we will add them. Okay, so there was another question, can we see sync up and sync down history of the current day? So this was another good suggestion. Currently, we're only showing the latest time, but we can add history. We will have to think on how we can incorporate it, because since it can be a very long list as well, if an order booker is syncing up or syncing down a number of times during the day. Okay, but this is a good suggestion. Either we'll give it in the mobile application, or we'll give it through reporting. We can let you know once we decide when we'll be working on this feature. Okay, so are there any other questions? Okay. Yeah, so we do have a question for you. And we want to understand our customers basically. If so, this is an open-ended question. Any suggestions that you would like to give us? Any daily operation at the distribution that you feel can be improved through Salesflow, or do you feel is time consuming, or that you'd like us to automate? You can drop in your suggestions in the chat window over here as well, or you can email us about that as well. So that we can add it into our innovation pipeline, and we can work on to improve the product for you guys further. So we'll wait for a couple of minutes more if you would like to send in your suggestions right now. Otherwise, we'll be also circulating a survey after the webinar. So if you would want to send in your suggestions over there as well, please feel free to do so. Okay, so I think we'll conclude the session, and we will be waiting for your feedback on these questions. Either you can email us, or you can send in through the survey, the feedback survey, and we'll be happy to take your responses and incorporate them in our innovation plan. Okay. So thank you everyone for taking out the time and joining the session, and do share your thoughts on how you think we can improve this platform and what more we can add over here. Okay, so thank you everyone.